to the ASMR History Channel, the one-stop shop for relaxing history documentaries. Today, I invite you to embark on a voyage through the tales of legendary pirates. Close your eyes, relax, and let the soothing sounds of the sea and my gentle storytelling transport you to the Golden Age of Piracy. Uncover hidden treasures, secret maps, and the captivating lives of those who lived by the pirate code. Drift into history with me, one whisper at a time. Pirates have long been romanticised in contemporary culture, yet they have had a significant impact on maritime history from ancient times through the notorious age of piracy in the 17th and 18th centuries. Legendary figures like Blackbeard, Henry Morgan, and Bonny struck fear into the Caribbean Sea and Atlantic Ocean, preying on the lucrative trade routes linking Europe and the Americas. Motivated by factors like economic hardship, the pursuit of wealth, and sometimes revenge against brutal naval practices, these seafaring outlaws often began as privateers, sanctioned by governments to target enemy vessels during wartime, but frequently shifted to piracy without discrimination. Although pirates are often glamorized in popular media, these portrayals seldom reflect the reality of their lives. In today's exploration, we'll delve into the stories of Bartholomew Roberts, William Kidd, Calico Jack, and Mary Read. This is just the first part of the video, and if you leave a kind comment below, you might persuade me to create part 2. Let's start with Bartholomew Roberts. Originally named John Roberts, Bartholomew Roberts was born in 1682 in Pembrokeshire, Wales, to a man probably named George Roberts. The exact reason for his name change to Bartholomew is unknown, but it was common for pirates to adopt aliases to evade capture or craft a fearsome identity. Roberts may have drawn inspiration from the infamous buccaneer Bartholomew Sharp. His maritime career began early, though little is recorded until 1718, when he surfaced as the mate of a Barbados sloop. By 1719, he had risen to the position of second mate on the slave ship Princess under Captain Abraham Plum. In early June of that year, while the ship was anchored at Anamabu on the Gold Coast, now Ghana, it was seized by pirates led by Howell Davis, a fellow Welshman. Davis, recognising Roberts' navigational prowess, frequently sought his advice, often conversing in Welsh to keep the predominantly English-speaking crew uninformed. Although initially hesitant to join the pirates, Roberts soon saw the appeal of the pirate life over the harsh conditions and meagre pay of legitimate maritime work. He famously remarked, "In an honest service, there is thin commons, low wages, and hard labour. In this, plenty and satiety, pleasure and ease, liberty and power, and who would not balance creditor on this side, when all the hazard that is run for it at worst is only a sour look or two at choking? No, a merry life and a short one shall be my motto." Roberts' shift from a poorly paid seaman in the merchant navy to a formidable pirate captain was swift. His previous wage in the merchant navy was under £4 a month, a modest amount at the time with little chance for advancement. His life took a pivotal turn soon after his capture by pirates. The pirate ship Royal James was abandoned due to worm damage, leading the crew, including Roberts, to continue on the Royal Rover. Following Davis's ambush and death by the Portuguese, the crew elected Roberts as their new captain, recognising his navigational skills and assertive personality despite his initial reluctance. As captain, Roberts's first significant act was a retaliatory attack on the island of Principe to avenge Davis's death. Under cover of night, Roberts and his men killed many of the island's male inhabitants and looted valuable goods. His boldness was further demonstrated when he captured a Dutch Guineaman and a British ship called the Experiment. After replenishing supplies, the crew decided to head towards Brazil. Roberts' daring and successful ventures earned him the respect and loyalty of his crew, who began to see him as pistol-proof, believing their fortunes were best served under his audacious command. The adventures of Bartholomew Roberts and his crew across the Atlantic exemplify the daring and audacious spirit of piracy during the Golden Age. After traversing the Atlantic, they used the uninhabited island of Fernando de Noronha for vital ship repairs. Despite a fruitless 9-week period off the Brazilian coast without encountering any ships, their luck changed when they spotted a fleet of 42 Portuguese vessels. Roberts' boldness came to the fore as he seized a ship from the fleet and forced the master to reveal the most opulent target. The Sagrada Familia, a heavily armed ship carrying 40 guns and manned by 170 sailors. The capture of this vessel proved extremely lucrative, yielding 40,000 gold moidores and royal jewellery intended for the King of Portugal, including a valuable diamond-encrusted cross. After this significant haul, Roberts and his men sailed to Devil's Island near Guyana to enjoy their newfound wealth. However, their celebration was short-lived as they sought more prizes near the Suriname River, capturing a sloop. Roberts' confidence in his crew was shattered when Walter Kennedy betrayed him by stealing the rover and its remaining treasure, while Roberts was pursuing another ship. Undeterred, Roberts and his loyal crew took the captured sloop, renamed it Fortune, and established a new set of pirate codes to ensure discipline and loyalty. Roberts' increasing notoriety provoked armed responses from authorities. In late February 1720, 2 well-armed ships from Barbados confronted Roberts' crew. Although they faced fierce resistance and sustained considerable damage, Roberts and his men managed to escape. This encounter fueled Roberts' desire for vengeance against his adversaries, prompting him to create a new flag depicting him standing over skulls labelled ABH, a Barbadian's head, and AMH, a Martiniquean's head. Roberts' influence and ruthlessness grew as he moved towards Newfoundland. There, he and his crew raided Canso, Nova Scotia, capturing numerous ships around Cape Breton and the Newfoundland banks. On June 21st, Roberts boldly entered the harbour of Trepassey with black flags flying, where he found a fleet of 172 ships. The crews, terrified, abandoned their vessels, allowing Roberts to capture all 22 merchant ships in the harbour. Showing his contempt for the cowardice of the captains, he forced them to attend him each morning under the threat of burning their ships. Upon departing, Roberts burned all the captured vessels except for a brig from Bristol, which he armed with 16 guns and renamed Fortune. His terror campaign continued through July, capturing up to 10 French ships. He refitted one of these ships with 26 cannons and renamed it Good Fortune. With enhanced firepower, Roberts seized more vessels as he made his way to the West Indies. His fleet, now consisting of Good Fortune and a captured sloop, continued their marauding through the Caribbean. By September 1720, Good Fortune was repaired and renamed Royal Fortune, the first of several ships to bear this name. The formidable presence of Royal Fortune and Fortune in the harbour of St. Kitts ensured they faced no resistance from the garrisons. Roberts' reputation became even more formidable with the alleged capture of Florimond Hurault de Montigny, the governor of Martinique, though historians debate this event's accuracy. Regardless of this tale's truth, Roberts' activities during this time nearly halted seaborne trade in the West Indies, demonstrating his profound impact on regional commerce. As spring 1721 arrived, Roberts' fleet set sail for West Africa. His associate, Thomas Anstis, took command of Good Fortune and remained in the Caribbean to continue their raids. Meanwhile, Roberts continued his journey towards Africa aboard Royal Fortune. Roberts' relentless pirate operations along the African coast exemplified his audacious spirit. By late April, after discovering that the Royal Fortune was leaking and abandoning it at the Cape Verde Islands, Roberts and his crew seized the Sea King, which they renamed the new Royal Fortune. This renaming continued Roberts' tradition of maintaining his flagship's legacy as they ventured toward the Guinea coast. In early June, near the Sagrera River, Roberts demonstrated his naval prowess by capturing 2 French ships armed with 10 and 16 guns, respectively. These vessels were renamed Ranger and Little Ranger, with Thomas Sutton and James Skirm appointed as their captains. The fleet then headed to Sierra Leone by mid-June, where they encountered John Old Crackers Leadstone, a retired pirate. Leadstone informed them of the Royal Navy's plans, revealing that HMS Swallow and HMS Weymouth were expected to return to the region by Christmas. Despite this impending threat, Roberts pressed on, capturing 2 significant ships at Point Sestos in Liberia on August 8th. Among them was the Onslow, a frigate carrying soldiers destined for Cape Coast Castle. Roberts offered these soldiers the chance to join his crew, albeit at a quarter of the usual pay due to their lack of maritime skills. The Onslow was then converted into the 4th Royal Fortune. As 1721 drew to a close, Roberts and his crew took time to careen their ships and relax at Cape Lopez and the island of Annobon. During this period, James Skirm replaced Sutton as the captain of the Ranger. In January 1722, Roberts intensified his piracy, sailing into Whydah Harbour. His formidable reputation led 11 ships to surrender without resistance, and Roberts demanded a ransom of 8 ounces of gold dust per ship. When one shipmaster refused to comply, Roberts demonstrated his ruthlessness by setting the ship on fire, resulting in the deaths of about 80 enslaved Africans. On February 5th, 1722, Captain Challoner Ogle of HMS Swallow cleverly approached Roberts' fleet at Cape Lopez. The Royal Fortune, Ranger, and Little Ranger were undergoing careening. Ogle's initial manoeuvre to veer away from shore made the pirates mistake the Swallow for a fleeing merchant ship. Seizing the opportunity, the pirates on the Ranger, led by Skirm, pursued the Swallow. However, once isolated, the Swallow revealed her true intent by opening her gun ports and unleashing a devastating broadside. The surprise attack killed 10 pirates, and Captain Skirm was gravely injured, losing a leg to a cannonball, but heroically remaining on deck. The overpowering firepower from the Swallow forced the Ranger to surrender, leading to the capture of its surviving crew. 5 days later, on February 10th, the Swallow returned to Cape Lopez to confront the Royal Fortune. Unbeknownst to Roberts, his crew had captured the ship Neptune the day before, and many of his men were incapacitated, likely from excessive drinking. Initially mistaking the Swallow for the returning Ranger, Roberts and his crew were caught off guard. When a deserter from the Swallow recognised the approaching ship and alerted Roberts, the pirates realised their peril. Known for his flair, Roberts prepared for battle, dressed extravagantly in a crimson damask waistcoat and breeches, a red feather in his hat, a gold chain with a diamond cross, and armed with swords and pistols. As the battle commenced, Roberts planned for the Royal Fortune to sail past the Swallow, exposing themselves to only one broadside. However, the helmsman failed to maintain the correct course, allowing the Swallow to close in and deliver a second, crippling broadside. Tragically, a shot struck Roberts in the throat, killing him instantly. In a final act of loyalty and respect, fulfilling Roberts' long-standing wish, his crew quickly wrapped his body in the ship's sail, weighed it down, and committed it to the sea, preventing his body from falling into enemy hands. Thus, Roberts' dramatic death marked the end of one of history's most notorious pirate captains. Drawing extensively from A General History of the Pirates by Captain Charles Johnson, these accounts paint a portrait of a pirate captain, both ruthless in his pursuits and principled in his own way. Roberts was described as tall, dark-complexioned, and nearly 40 years old, embodying both the charisma and terror associated with pirate captains of his time. His personal bravery was undisputed, yet it was applied towards goals that society condemned, tarnishing any potential admiration for his gallantry. He was known to toast darkly to a life free from the hangman's noose, indicating his defiance of the fate that awaited many pirates. Visually striking, Roberts often donned a red waistcoat, beaded with scarlet breeches, and topped with a scarlet flamingo plume. This attire, which may have helped mask blood during battle, also showcased his flamboyant disregard for subtlety or anonymity. His outfit often included a large diamond cross, reportedly seized from the King of Portugal, flaunting his success in plunder. Despite the fear he inspired, he was recognised for his courage and strategic skill. His leadership style was marked by disdain for cowardice, evident when he expressed outrage at captains who abandoned their ships without a fight in Trepassy Harbour. Roberts diverged from the typical pirate stereotype in notable ways. He preferred tea over rum, leading some to describe him as a teetotaler, though evidence indicates he did consume beer and avoided hard spirits like rum while at sea. His approach to the Sabbath was also unique. He ensured his musicians had a day of rest, hinting at a more disciplined and regulated life aboard his ship. Robert's treatment of prisoners varied widely. While he was not as brutal as pirates like Francis Spriggs or Edward Lowe, he wasn't as lenient as Samuel Bellamy or Edward England either. He could be harsh, especially to meet the expectations of his crew, but he also showed moments of unexpected generosity, giving gifts to cooperative captains and crews of captured ships. His actions were calculated to maintain his authority and crew loyalty, but he communicated that his harshness was a choice rather than a necessity. Ultimately, the legend of Black Bart, as he was also known, is filled with contradictions. Between his personal code and the violent imperatives of his life at sea, between his flamboyance and his discipline, and between his ruthlessness and occasional generosity. Now, let's delve into the story of William Kidd, commonly known as Captain Kidd, born before October the 15th, 1654, in Dundee, Scotland. Although other locations like Greenock and Belfast have been suggested, Kidd himself testified in 1695 to the High Court of Admiralty that he was indeed from Dundee, and his baptism records support this claim. After his father's death, a local society in Dundee provided financial support to his family, dispelling myths that his father was a minister, as no records from the Church of Scotland from that period mention his name. As a young man, Kidd moved to New York City, which had recently been taken over by the English from the Dutch. There, he became well connected, befriending several colonial governors. Early accounts suggest he may have served as a seaman's apprentice on a pirate ship before transitioning to a privateer. In 1689, Kidd was part of a French-English pirate crew in the Caribbean under Captain Jean Fantin. After a mutiny against Fantin, Kidd and the crew sailed to Nevis, where they renamed their ship Blessed William. Kidd took over as captain, possibly elected by his crew, or appointed by Christopher Codrington, the governor of Nevis. Under Codrington, Kidd's ship defended Nevis from French forces, as the English were at war with France at the time. The governor instructed Kidd and his men to finance their efforts by plundering French territories, leading to the sacking of Marie Galante. Later, during the War of the Grand Alliance, Kidd captured an enemy privateer off the New England coast, earning a reward for his privateering efforts in the Caribbean. However, his ship was stolen by the pirate Robert Culliford while Kidd was ashore in Antigua. Back in New York, Kidd contributed financially to the building of Trinity Church. On May 16, 1691, he married Sarah Bradley Cox Ort, a wealthy young widow who had inherited a substantial fortune from her first husband. On December 11th, 1695, William Kidd, then a respected privateer, received a formidable commission from Richard Coote, the first Earl of Bellamont, who was the governor of New York, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Bellamont, acting with the authority of the Crown, tasked Kidd with hunting down notorious pirates, including Thomas Dew, John Ireland, Thomas Wake, and William Mays, as well as attacking French ships. This commission was a pivotal moment for Kidd, as refusal to accept could have been seen as disloyal, carrying significant social repercussions. The financial backing for Kidd's 1696 pirate hunting venture came from some of the most influential men in England, including the Earl of Orford, the Baron of Romney, the Duke of Shrewsbury, and Sir John Somers. They covered 4/5 of the expedition's cost. Additionally, Kidd received a letter of marque directly from King William III, legitimising his actions as a privateer and entitling the Crown to a 10% share of the loot. Preparations for the voyage were orchestrated by Kidd, along with his acquaintance, Colonel Robert Livingston, with further financial contributions from the merchant Sir Richard Blackham. To gather the necessary funds, Kidd even sold his old ship, the Antigua. Kidd's new ship, the Adventure Galley, was notably equipped for combat and swift movement, boasting 34 cannons and outfitted with oars to allow manoeuvrability in calm winds, features that made her ideal for pursuing pirates. Kidd was meticulous in selecting his crew, choosing men he believed to be both skilled and loyal. An event during the Adventure Galley's voyage down the Thames set a negative tone for Kidd's journey. He failed to salute a Navy yacht in Greenwich, a significant breach of naval etiquette. The yacht's crew responded by firing a warning shot. In a bold act of defiance, Kidd's crew mocked the naval men by mooning them. This act of disrespect resulted in many of Kidd's crew being forced into naval service by the yacht's captain, a practice typically reserved for ordinary seamen rather than privateers. Kidd, now understaffed, sailed to New York, capturing a French vessel along the way, which was legitimate under his letter of marque. In New York, he recruited new crew members, many of whom were known criminals and possibly former pirates. Among these recruits was Hendrik van der Hoel, the quartermaster and second in command, described as a small black man, potentially of African or Dutch descent. Van der Hoel was notable for being one of the highest-ranking individuals of African ancestry to serve as a pirate or privateer during this period. Unlike many contemporaries, he later transitioned to a legitimate maritime career, becoming a master's mate on a merchant ship, without ever being convicted of piracy. In September 1696, Kidd departed England waters around southern Africa. The voyage was plagued by misfortune. The newly built ship began leaking, and in Madagascar, Kidd found none of the pirates he hoped to capture. With financial pressures mounting, Kidd's desperation grew, yet he refrained from attacking several potential targets, including a Dutch ship and a New York privateer, decisions that caused significant problems. Discontent among his crew led to desertions and threats of mutiny. The tension peaked on October 30th, 1697, during an encounter with a Dutch vessel. William Moore, Kidd's gunner, urged him to attack. Kidd, aware of the diplomatic repercussions, refused. A heated exchange ensued, culminating in Kidd striking Moore with an iron-bound bucket, fatally wounding him. Moore died the next day. This violent act exceeded the authority granted to ship captains by 17th century English Admiralty law. Kidd's dismissive comment to his ship's surgeon about his powerful connections in England, believing they would protect him, marked a significant turning point, casting him as a pirate in the world's eyes. Kidd's transformation into a pirate was hastened by his subsequent actions. In January 1698, he captured the Quedagh merchant under French colours, seizing valuable cargo, including gold, silver, and silks. Kidd found a French pass on board, hoping it would legitimise his capture. However, news of this high seas robbery reached England, and the Crown, unable to ignore such blatant piracy, classified Kidd as a pirate and ordered his capture. Despite these challenges, Kidd met with notorious pirate Robert Culliford, who had previously stolen Kidd's ship, the Mocha frigate. Accounts vary. Some suggest Kidd allied with Culliford, sharing resources and toasting each other's health, while others depict a tense encounter where Kidd's crew refused to fight Culliford and eventually joined his ranks, abandoning Kidd. Feeling betrayed, Kidd burned the adventure galley to salvage its metal and continued on the adventure prize. His return to the Caribbean was marked by desperation. He repaired his ship at St. Augustine's Bay, but his crew dwindled to 13 loyal members. Sailing back to North America, Kidd knew he was a wanted man without hope of pardon. Excluded from the 1698 Act of Grace, which offered pardons to pirates who surrendered, by the time Kidd reached Anguilla, he knew his fate was sealed. His journey from privateer to pirate was complete. Initially engaged by the English government to hunt pirates, he became a victim of politics and piracy accusations. His end was marked by betrayal, an irregular trial, and a notorious execution. Kidd's downfall illustrates the thin line between legal privateering and piracy in the 17th century. His letter of marque from King William III to target pirates and enemy French ships was compromised by his crew's actions and the ambiguous nature of his commission. Missing crucial documents, like the French passes, weakened his defence. His backers in the government, seeking to avoid scandal, abandoned him during the trial, leaving him without support. Kidd's execution was almost theatrical in its cruelty. The rope snapped during the initial attempt to hang him, necessitating a second, successful attempt. Following his death, his body was displayed in a gibbet over the River Thames to deter others from pursuing a similar path. Decades later, the discovery of the long-missing French passes brought a new perspective to Kidd's story. These documents suggested that his reputation as a pirate might have been politically motivated, rather than based on actual guilt. Despite this, Kidd's tale has become legendary, immortalised in songs, literature, and folklore, blurring the lines between history and myth. Turning to the tale of Calico Jack, also known as Jack Rackham, we find a pirate known for his love of brightly patterned fabrics. Details of his scant, with his first significant mention in 1718 when he was the quartermaster aboard Charles Vane's brigantine, the Ranger, operating from New Providence in the Bahamas, a notorious pirate haven. That autumn, Rackham and his crew committed numerous acts of piracy. A crucial moment in Rackham's career came after they captured several ships near New York City. They then encountered a powerful French man-of-war. Vane, the captain, chose to retreat, prioritising caution. However, Rackham argued for a daring attack, believing the French ship carried vast treasures and would make a superior prize. His boldness resonated with the majority of the crew, and on November 24th, 1718, they voted to depose Vane, branding him a coward, and elected Rackham as their new captain. Demonstrating a rare sense of fairness, Rackham allowed Vane and his loyalists to depart on a smaller, well-provisioned ship. As captain, Rackham shifted his strategy to target smaller, more vulnerable vessels along coastal waters, a tactic that proved effective. Among his notable captures was the Kingston, a small Jamaican ship that Rackham made his new flagship. Over time, his fleet grew with several successful captures in the West Indies, including notable victories off Bermuda in 1719. In 1719, Rackham and his crew sailed into Nassau, Bahamas, taking advantage of a general amnesty for pirates. This allowed him to secure a royal pardon and a commission from Governor Woodes Rogers, who had been appointed to suppress piracy and restore order. This pardon marked a significant turning point, as Rogers had a strong mandate to curtail piracy, which had increasingly disrupted British maritime commerce. However, Rackham's resolve to adhere to his pardon did not last. In December 1719, he captured the merchant ship Kingston, laden with valuable cargo. This bold move, unfortunately, took place within sight of Port Royal, prompting swift retaliation from local merchants. They financed bounty hunters who tracked Rackham down in February 1720 at Isla de los Pinos near Cuba. Although Rackham and most of his crew managed to escape capture by hiding in the woods, they lost both their ship and the Kingston to their pursuers. Thus, the tales of Captain William Kidd and Calico Jack highlight the precarious line between privateering and piracy, shaped by bold actions, political machinations, and the ever-present threat of retribution. Rackham's ingenuity and adaptability are vividly portrayed in an episode documented by Captain Charles Johnson in his influential 1724 book, A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates. While refurbishing a small sloop in a Cuban port, Rackham observed a Spanish warship and a captured English sloop arriving at the harbour. Unable to engage them because of the low tide, Rackham waited patiently. Under the cover of darkness, he and his crew rowed to the English sloop, overpowered the Spanish guards, and seized the vessel. By dawn, the Spanish warship attacked the now empty pirate sloop, while Rackham and his men silently sailed away in their newly acquired ship. Upon returning to Nassau, Rackham and his crew needed to explain their actions. They appeared before Governor Rogers, asserting they had been forced into piracy by the infamous Charles Vane. Rogers, sympathetic and resentful towards Vane, chose to believe Rackham's story and granted them the royal pardon once more. With their pardon secured, Rackham remained in Nassau and began a notorious affair with Bonny, who was married to James Bonny, a sailor working under Governor Rogers. Bonny's spirited and unconventional nature captivated Rackham. When James Bonny discovered the affair, he brought Anne before Governor Rogers, who ordered her to be whipped for adultery. Determined to stay with Anne, Rackham proposed buying a divorce from James Bonny, and joined Rackham on his pirate ventures, marking the end of Rackham's brief attempt at legitimacy. Together, Rackham and Bonny, along with a new crew, stole a sloop owned by John Ham and resumed their piracy. They roamed the Caribbean, capturing other pirate ships and expanding their crew by offering membership to those they defeated. During this period, Bonny became pregnant and temporarily left the pirate life to give birth in Cuba, while Rackham continued his exploits. By late 1720, Calico Jack Rackham's pirate career was nearing its dramatic end. In September, Governor Woodes Rogers of the Bahamas officially declared Rackham and his crew pirates, issuing a warrant for their arrest. Pirate hunter Jonathan Barnett and former pirate Jean Bonavie were tasked with capturing Rackham. In October, while plundering along Jamaica's northern coast, Rackham recklessly anchored near Negril, where a fateful encounter with Barney awaited. On the night of October 31st, 1720, Boniface spotted Rackham's sloop and informed Barnett of its location. When Barnett approached and demanded identification, Rackham boldly replied, "John Rackham from Cuba," followed by a defiant refusal to surrender and a shot from a swivel gun. Barnett responded with a crippling broadside, forcing Rackham and his crew to call for quarter. The pirates were captured and brought ashore at Davis's Cove near Lucia, Jamaica, where they were arrested by Major Richard James of the local militia and transported to Spanish Town for trial. In November 1720, Rackham and his crew were tried and swiftly convicted of piracy. The expected verdict was grim. They were sentenced to hang. Rackham met his end on November 18th, 1720, executed in Port Royal. His body was gibbeted on a small islet at the entrance to Port Royal, known thereafter as Rackham's Cay, serving as a stark warning to others. Following Rackham's capture and execution, a series of trials highlighted the severe consequences of piracy. Bonny and Mary Red, two of Rackham's most infamous crew members, claimed pregnancy to delay their executions, a common tactic known as the plea of the belly. Mary Red died in April 1721 from illness likely related to childbirth in her cell at Fort Charles. Bonny's fate remains a mystery, as historical records do not conclusively reveal whether she was released or executed, leaving much to speculation about her ultimate destiny. Alongside Rackham, many of his crew members met a grim fate. On the same day as Rackham's execution in Port Royal, George Featherstone, the ship's master, Richard Corner, the quartermaster, and crew members John Davis and John Howard were also hanged. The following day in Kingston, more of the crew, including Patrick Carty, Thomas Earl, James Dobbin, and Noah Harwood, were executed. Subsequent trials led to the convictions of John Old, Thomas Fenwick, and Thomas Bold for separate acts of mutiny committed earlier that year. The legal consequences continued into the next year. In January 1721, 9 men linked to Rackham's crew were found guilty of piracy. Their sentences, carried out in February, highlighted the colonial authorities' severe crackdown on piracy. John Eaton, Thomas Quick, and Thomas Baker were hanged at Gallows Point in Port Royal, while John Cole, John Howard, and Benjamin Palmer were executed in Kingston. Although the fates of Edward Warner, Walter Rouse, and John Hanson remain unknown, it is likely they faced similar grim outcomes. Mary Read's life, marked by necessity and survival, often involved her masquerading as a man. Her early years were filled with deception and hardship. After her sailor father disappeared at sea, her widowed mother faced dire financial strains. The death of Mary's older brother further compounded their situation, leading her mother to disguise Mary as a boy to continue father's charity for a time. At 13, Mary courageously continued the ruse to find work, first as a footboy and later aboard a ship, beginning her life at sea. This marked the start of her seafaring adventures and eventual military service. Mary's bravery and skill were evident during her time in the British military and later in a regiment allied with Dutch forces against the French. However, military promotion was often based on purchase rather than merit, blocking her advancement. Her life took a romantic turn when she fell in love with a Flemish soldier while serving in Flanders. They married and briefly settled as innkeepers near Breda Castle. Unfortunately, her husband's death forced her back into military life. With peace limiting opportunities for advancement, she headed for the West Indies. Her journey took an unexpected turn when pirates captured her ship. Her male disguise enabled her to blend in with the British crew members aboard the pirate ship. This twist of fate led her into piracy alongside Bonny and Calico Jack Rackham, establishing her as one of the most formidable female pirates in history. Reed's pirate career vividly illustrates life on the high seas, where societal norms were as fluid as the waters. She willingly joined a pirate crew and accepted the king's pardon around 1718 to 1719, briefly aligning with the laws as a privateer before returning to piracy through mutiny. Her association with Calico Jack began in earnest in 1720. Initially unaware of Reed's true gender, Rackham was part of a crew that stole an armed sloop named William from Nassau, a pivotal act that solidified their bond as pirates. The dynamics aboard the ship shifted dramatically when Bonny, who found herself drawn to Reed, mistakenly believed Reed was a man and revealed her own gender to her, to keep peace and prevent jealousy from Rackham. Bonny eventually disclosed Reed's true identity to him. The presence of both Reed and Bonny as female pirates in a male-dominated world prompts fascinating questions about gender roles and identity during the Golden Age of Piracy. Their attire, while practical, also enabled them to blend in seamlessly with the pirate crew, circumventing the usual limitations imposed on women of that era. Dorothy Thomas, a victim of Rackham's piracy, provides a rare external perspective on Reed and Bonny. Her account not only underscores their intimidating presence and pirate garb, but also subtly verifies their gender by mentioning their noticeably large breasts despite their masculine attire. This perspective lends credibility to the often romanticised narratives of Reed and Bonny, anchoring their legendary status in concrete eyewitness testimony. The dramatic capture of Jack Rackham and his crew by Captain Jonathan Barnett on October 22nd, 1720, stands out in pirate history, especially highlighting the fierce defence mounted by Bonny and Mary Reed. According to various sources, while Rackham and his men were incapacitated, likely from heavy drinking during a party at Negril Point in Jamaica, it fell to Bonny, Reed, and perhaps one other crew member to fend off Barnett's attack. This portrayal underscores the bravery and determination of Bonny and Reed, contrasting sharply with the alleged cowardice or incapacity of their male counterparts. The subsequent trial of Rackham's crew in Spanish Town, Jamaica, quickly led to guilty verdicts and executions. Bonny and Reed, however, postponed their executions by claiming they were pregnant. Reed's life ended tragically in prison in April 1721, with St. Catherine's Church in Jamaica recording her burial on April 28th. The absence of any records of her child's birth or survival suggests she may have died during pregnancy, or that her pregnancy claim was a strategy to delay execution. As we conclude our journey through the Golden Age of Piracy, the tales of these legendary pirates, Bartholomew Roberts, William Kidd, and Calico Jack, highlight the complex and often brutal lives of those who chose the pirate's path. Each story reflects a unique blend of audacity, desperation, and a defiance of the conventional laws of their time. Bartholomew Roberts, with his calculated ruthlessness and strict code, exemplified the terror and discipline that defined successful pirate leaders. William Kidd's transition from respected privateer to notorious pirate underscores the thin line between lawful privateering and outright piracy. Calico Jack Rackham, known for his flamboyance and daring, and his formidable female companions, Anne Bonny and Mary Read, challenged societal norms and left an indelible mark on pirate lore. These pirates, while often romanticised in popular culture, lived harsh and dangerous lives, driven by the pursuit of wealth and freedom from oppressive naval practices. Their legacies are a testament to the turbulent seas of history they navigated, forever intertwining their fates with the myths and realities of piracy. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of pirate history. If you enjoyed this voyage, please leave a kind comment below, and perhaps we'll continue with more tales of these enigmatic figures. Until then, may the whispers of history and the soothing sounds of the sea accompany you into a world of adventure and mystery.